Hi, welcome to Glitter Glue and Fairy Dust. This is Amy. Still in Christmas mode, today we're going to make some more Christmas decorations. So the first decoration that we're going to make uses this little house from the Dollar Tree. I took off the embellishments because I wasn't going to use them. Now, I have seen this exact house several times, but if you can't get this one, they do have others that have like a whiteboard and even a chalkboard on them. You could use those as well. And you could either just paint it a solid color, or you could, put other papers and stuff on it. I decided I was going to paint mine red, so I took the embellishment off and some of the wood stuck on there, so I did just sand it down. At the end of the day, you will not see it. I just used one coat of Waverly Chalk paint in the color Crimson. And I do get it up a little bit on the roof line there because I'm trying to get all of it really well covered, but I just cover right over that in a moment, so it's no issue. The roof line, I'm using Waverly Chalk paint and I'm using the color Ink. And that also just took one coat. I'm going to put a little wreath on this house. I happen to have this little wreath in my stash. However, if you can't find this little wreath, you can just use the pit berries like I'm using and just wrap those into the wreath form and it'll work. You can find the pit berries at the Dollar Tree and they have different colors. So you could use a whole roll of the pit berries or just a few to make the wreath the size that you want it. Now it's time for the bling decoration. I decided to try to use this holographic vinyl. I think it's really more of a paper from the Dollar Tree. And I have to say I was actually quite pleased. I did use just an image that I found on Cricut Design Space and printed it or cut it with my Cricut, and it cut really easily. I did have a little bit of an issue sometimes with the weeding, but I think that was just the font itself, not the paper. So I really was pleased with it. So after I weed it, then I take my transfer tape and I move it to the house. I will tell you that I believe the paint and the material that was on the house, the two combinations, did make it a little bit textured. So the hologram did have a little bit of a harder time sticking, but all I had to do was just work with it a little bit and it was just fine. So if you don't have a Cricut, you can still make this decoration. You can use stencils or you can use stickers, and I know that you can get both of those from the Dollar Tree. Or you could use a Sharpie or a paint pen and write it on yourself. So you do not have to have a Cricut to make this. I found that my transfer tape was really pretty strong, and so if I just lost any ground, it would stick to the vinyl again, and so I had to kind of start all over. So I did cut it in half, and that just made it a little bit easier to work with, but not a necessary step. After I got my design on there, then I just glued down the wreath to the top of the little house, and that is all there is to this. I have to say, I really love the way this turned out. So the next piece that we're making is kind of a little bit of a cheat because I'm using it for a wreath that we're going to be making. The reason I'm showing it in this video though is because it's something that you can use for all sorts of decorations. It's just a new way of doing it. So I'm showing you knowing that it's kind of a tease. So what I did is took the napkins that I liked from the Dollar Tree and I separated the plies out. This was a 2-ply, so you just had to take the second ply off. And then this napkin was obviously a little bit too small for the wood round that I had, so I used 2 napkins, and I just cut the napkins where the design that I wanted was, and then I was able to match it up on the wood round. Now you can see that the back of my wood round is already painted white. That was something that I had done when I was going to use it for something else, so also that's not a necessary step, but it does make everything look clean and finished. So you can see here I am trying to match the pattern up, and in the end I actually decided to turn the napkin horizontally and match it up that way. And this is a way to attach this napkin to the wood round without using the Mod Podge. And I've used it a couple times, and I like it, but it's not my most favorite. I'll tell you, I think next time I'm going to use the Mod Podge. This is just a different way to do it. I think that my saran wrap is probably just a little bit too thick, so I haven't had the most success, so I would not get a super thick saran wrap. Make sure that your iron is on high on cotton, no steam. And here you can see me just trying to make sure that I can get it to fit, and then I'll match the other half up to it. Now, while I'm doing that, I just want to thank you for stopping by here again today. If you are a subscriber and you've been here week after week, thank you so much for coming back. I love having you here. And if you're new and haven't subscribed, I'd sure like to ask you if you could do that. I do answer all of my comments, and I love to see finished projects. So if you make a project, you're more than welcome to send it to me at glitterglueandfairydust@gmail.com, and if you'd like it to be featured in a future video, let me know that that's okay. Now, I did struggle with this just a little bit because the napkins are really light, and if you just move them just a little bit, you kind of have to reset it, and I did that a few times. So I did not edit that out, and the reason I don't is because I feel like I want to be an honest crafter. I make mistakes or underestimate things all the time, and you just kind of have to roll with the punches. So you can see here, every time I move, I'm moving that napkin. So I think this was a me issue, not a napkin issue or parchment paper issue. This was me. I'm not the most patient human being, so I probably rushed it just a little bit. I also know that I left a little bit of white on that, and it wasn't matching up as well as I'd liked, so maybe it was a good thing. So I just cut the little excess off, and then I matched it up, and you can see you kind of have to move it over a little bit to match the snowflakes up, so it is kind of like doing wallpaper. And I moved it again, so there it is. The struggle is real. Now, I'm using parchment paper. That's the way I've seen it done. However, I have to tell you, either my iron is not super hot or my saran wrap is super thick. So I didn't necessarily think that I needed to use the parchment paper. And in fact, at one point, I did just take it off and just iron right on top of the napkin. So if you take my advice, just be careful, make sure that your iron isn't any hotter or whatever, so you may want to try a parchment paper to start with, and then if you find you have the same issue, then take the parchment paper away. So here I'm trying again, and there it is. Like I said, I could edit this out, but I feel like We all kind of had struggles, and I learn just as much from my successes as I do from my struggles. That is honest to goodness truth. All right, here we go. You can see I mean business now. I'm holding it down tight. And here we go with the iron. The other thing I will tell you is, again, my impatience gets me in a little bit of trouble. I don't think that I held it down in a single spot long enough to begin with. So I would hold it down longer in the first spot that you touch on. Again, this is me just being silly. I shouldn't have lifted it up quite as early because honestly, it didn't have enough time to do anything. Now, I've seen people do this before and they wait 30 seconds, and I actually had to do a little bit longer on this. So I do believe every iron and the saran wrap may be just a little bit different. So I think that's kind of why I had to wait a little bit longer. But once I was done, I just took my X-Acto knife and cut around the edges. You can see that mine tried to lift up just a little bit there, and I did go back over it and it was fine. You can see I'm not even using the parchment paper here. Now, I did not sand the edges because when I cut around with my X-Acto knife, it was just fine. You can see I put some pipe cleaners on it because I'm going to use it for the inside of a wreath. I knew I wanted this deer, and I liked that pattern of napkin, and that's why I used it. Now, I'm going to do a little bit of a cheat. I'm not actually going to show you what it looks like in the wreath. I will show you eventually because we're going to actually make the wreath in the next video. So this is kind of a little unfair. I am going to show it to you close up, but it won't have any context, so it may not make sense. Once I placed my decoration on and made sure that it was fine, then I just attached this to the wreath with the pipe cleaners. Now this could be used for any decoration, mind you, so keep it in mind. Here is the house finished. And here is what it looks like finished. Again, no context because it's in the middle of a wreath, but I think it turned out great. Thank you for stopping by, and I hope to see you next time.